repeat with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Salutation to the three jewels, page number 5, Buddha Vandana. Itipiso bhagava arahan samma sambuddho Vinja charana sampanno Sugato lokavido Anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati Satta deva manussanam Buddho bhagavati. Buddham jivita pariyantam saranam gacchami. Dhamma Vandana. Swakato bhagavata dhammo Sanditthiko akaliko Ehi passiko opanaiko Pacchattam veditambo vinyuhiti Dhammam jivita pariyantam saranam gacchami. Sangha Vandana. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho Ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho Nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho Samici patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho Yadidam chattari purisa yugani Atta purisa pungala Esa bhagavato savaka sangho Ahuneyo pahuneyo Dakkineyo anjali karaniyo Anuttarang punyakkettang lokassati Sangham jivita pariyantam saranam gacchami. Page number 16. Rectification of faults. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katam acchayam khamame bante bhuri panya tathagata. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katam acchayam khamame bante bhuri panya tathagata. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katam acchayam khamame bante bhuri panya tathagata. Page number 31. Samyutta Sutta. Karaniya matta kusalena yantang santang padang abhisamicca sakko yuca sujuca suvaco jassa mudu anatimani santussa koca subaroca appakiccoca sallahuka buddhi santindriyoca nipakoca appagambo kulesu ananugindo nacakuttang samacare kinci yena vinyo pare upavadeyum sukino va khemino hontu sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta yeke pana bhutatti tasava dhavarava anavasesa dīghāvāye mahantava majjima rasa khānukatula diṭṭhāvāyeva andiṭṭhā yeca dure vasanti avidure bhūtāvā sambhavisīvā sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta naparo param nikumbeta ñāti manneta katta cinam kanci vyārosana patiga saññā ñāñña maññassa dukkha micceya mātāyatāniyam puntam āyusa eka puttha manurakke evampi sappa bhutesu mānasam bhāvaye aparimanam Mettanca sabba lokasmin mānasam bhāvaye aparimanam uddhaṃ adoca tiriyaṃca asambādhaṃ averaṃ asapattaṃ tiṭṭaṃ caraṃ nisinnovā sayānu vāyāvatassa vigatamindo etaṃ satiṃ adiṭṭeya brahmametam viharam idamahu dittinca anupadamma sīlavā dassanena sampanno kāmesu vinayya gedhaṃ nahi jātu gabbaseyyaṃ punareti Okay, dear Dharma friends, now we are going to start today Dharma discussion. Topic is about the Four Noble Truths or the Arya Satya, Chattari Arya Satya. My discussion is based on Pali discourses or suttas, especially the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Maha Satipatthana Sutta, Maha Chattarika Sutta, Sangiti Sutta, and so on. These are the discourses I have referred in this discussion. According to the teachings of the Buddha, whether the Buddhas arise or not, the noble truths are existing in the world, right? It is the Buddha who discovers them to the deluded world. Buddha discovered as his effort to the truths, and he preached to the deluded world. These truths are in Pali termed as Arya Satya. It is called as Arya because it was discovered by the greatest Arya. Arya means, or in Sanskrit, Arya means the Buddha, because these truths were discovered by the greatest Arya, or the Buddha, who belonged to the noble plan as a fully eradicator of all defilements. So, in that sense, we call Buddha as greatest Arya. Buddhism presents its teaching on the problem of suffering and the solution there through four propositions, right? One can say Buddhism is teaching its doctrine in the problem of suffering. It means it is the main teaching in Buddhism. There is suffering, that is, we call in Pali dukkha. Dukkha means the suffering. That is the first truth. There is a cause for this suffering, that is samudaya, or the cause for suffering. There is a cessation of this suffering through the removal of the cause of suffering. Cessation we call nirodha. Nirodha Satya. That is the third truth. There is a way which leads to the removal of cause of this suffering, which results in the cessation of suffering, that is called Magga. So these are the four truths: Dukkha Satya, Samudaya Satya, Nirodha Satya, Magga Satya. These are the Four Noble Truths which I am going to explain with you in details. Together with these four, we call Four Noble Truths, Chattari Arya Satyani. When we are thinking about the significance of these truths or the aspects of noble truths, each assumes significance in relation to the other three. They have significant relation with each other. They are not separate aspects, right? But they have very good combination or relation with each other. If the truth of suffering, that is Dukkha Satya, is required to be understood in isolation from the rest, such an understanding will necessarily lead to the conclusion that the Buddhism advocates a pessimistic and negative view of life. So that is why there are four aspects of proposition in this Four Noble Truths. It is not only talking about the dukkha, not only talking about the dukkha or the suffering, but the eradication of the suffering as well as the reason to suffering. And there are another three aspects of it also discussed. Because of that reason, one cannot say that Buddhism was a pessimistic. Buddhism is a pessimistic or negative view of life, right? Any such misconception could be easily removed if it is understood in its proper context in relation to the other three truths. So, for the better understanding of their relations, as well as a gradual process, question and answer, as well as the path and how we process all these things are, we can see in the Four Noble Truths. In other words, they are not the four different propositions, they are not different aspects, right? But four aspects of one, they combine as together. But when we look at in deep, we can see that they are the four aspects of one, the proposition which is called suffering. So the other three parts are really connected with the suffering or the dukkha. And also, it is clear that the Four Noble Truths constitute as a progressive series, each leading to the next and each throwing a light on the next. So this is how they are presented. They have progressive series. As a progressive series we can discuss, as well as each leads to the next, as well as each is throwing a light on the next. It means their connection. We can see their real connection. When we look at the nature of Four Noble Truths, the first and the second truths are for all beings, right? The first truth and the second truth, that is the first truth, the suffering or dukkha, and the cause to the suffering, right? Those are the first truths. Those two, for the all beings, it means they can practice and they can examine by all the people, right? Not any division. They can examine and they can practice. The next two are real in the sense of that they can be made real by all those who have requested some qualities. For the third truth and the fourth truth, someone has to develop some spiritual qualities, right? So otherwise they cannot practice it. That is the Nirodha and the Magga Satya. These are the third and the fourth truths. Nibbana, involving the third noble truth, that is we call Nirodha Satya, has to be realized in the sense of making it real in oneself. The fourth truth has to be cultivated. So to realize the Nirodha, as well as to cultivate the path or the Magga, someone needs some kind of spiritual qualities, as well as developed mind, as well as the other bodily and verbal conducts. Without them, someone cannot practice the last two aspects of truths. While the first and the second noble truths define dukkha and identify its cause of origin respectively, the third and the fourth noble truths deal with the path leading to its cessation. So this is also very important. The first and the second truths define dukkha and its cause. The third and the fourth deal with the path leading to its cessation. This path is the noble eightfold path. As we know, we call it noble eightfold path. Attangika Magga in Pali, noble eightfold path. This is the path. Or the fourth Noble Truth. This path presents a very comprehensive program of training and discipline that leads to one's total inner revolution by the simultaneous perfection of one's morality, concentration and wisdom. So this path is giving that higher training as well as discipline that leads to one's total inner revolution. With that path we can change our inner situation into good way. Under we call morality, that is the Sila, as well as concentration, that is the Samadhi, and the wisdom or Panya, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. In this way, this path will tame and train and offer us discipline or good behavior to suitable to build up our inner qualities, inner spiritual qualities. Another point, the knowledge of each Four Truth involves 3 stages. Each has 3 stages, namely knowing that it is true, that is Satya Jnana, knowing that it is true, knowing some about it, that is the truth, we call Satya Jnana. That something needs to be done about it, that is Kicca Jnana, something need to be done, and that what is needed to be done has been done, that is we call Kata Jnana, Satya Jnana, Kicca Jnana, Kata Jnana. For an example, in the case of the first truth, the Buddha knew that it is true. Buddha understood that it is true, right? That is we call Satya Jnana, understood as it is the truth. The truth. That it has to be comprehended. We call it Pariññaya. We have to practice it, right? That is Pariññaya. And that it was comprehended, Pariññata. And he completely comprehended it. That is we call Pariññata. He understood. In the like manner, similar 3 stages are applicable to what involves the second Noble Truth, that is craving, which is to be abundant, the third Noble Truth, that is Nibbana, which is to be realized, and the fourth Noble Truth, the Eightfold Path, which is to be cultivated. In this way, we should have to understand the first Noble Truth, we have to Pariññata, and the second noble truth, that is craving, which has to be abandoned. We have to keep away. The third noble truth, that is Nirodha, which has to be realized. And the fourth noble truth, that is, which is to be cultivated. In this way, regarding four truths, we have to do separate actions, right? Not the same action. This is the idea about further idea about the Arya. It is from what we call noble or Arya. That is very important to understand. What is mean by this epithet is obviously not its racial meaning. So this is idea I have taken from the Visuddhimagga. It is a book of Venerable A, the great commentator's book, Visuddhimagga, or the Compendium of Buddhism. In this book, he has given some ideas about the noble or Arya, right? The four truths are called Arya for the following reasons, according to him. They have been realized by the noble ones, such as the Buddhas. In that sense, we are called noble or Arya. Truths that belong to the noble, those truths are belonging to the noble. The truths, the realization of which makes one noble. After realization, the truths one can say the noble one. Truths that are noble. So these truths are noble. So in this way we can understand this is not Arya means actually not in the sense of racial like or ethnic meaning, but it is sort of we can suppose that it is also a race, but it is sort of spiritual racial. It has spiritual idea because Buddha and the worthy ones we call the Arya. For the disciples of the Buddha, those who have entered into the path, we call Arya Savaka, right? Arya Savaka means the disciples of the Buddha, right? It means those disciples have entered into the path. It means the noble eightfold path. They are still taming and developing in that path, right? That is the idea. In this way, we can conclude the introduction part. We can observe like this. The truth of suffering, that's the first truth, is to be thoroughly understood. That is parinyeya. We have to understood the truth of suffering. The cause of suffering is to be removed. That is pahatabba, cause, that is the cause, which we are going to discuss later. The second truth we have to remove, right? The cessation of suffering is to be realized. That is Nirodha. We have to realize. That is we call Satchikatabba in path. And the path that leads to the cessation of suffering is to be developed. That is we call Bhave Tattva. So these are some introductory part. Now we are moving to the first noble truth, Dukkha Arya Satya. It is generally translated into English as the noble truth of suffering. Dukkha Arya Satya. According to the PTS dictionary, PTS meaning Pali Text Society Dictionary, is in English one. There is no any word in English covering the same ground as the term dukkha does in Pali. It further says that the modern words are too specialized or too limited and usually too strong. So this is the idea of PTS dictionary. It is very difficult to find out any English word for the term dukkha, but normally we are using suffering as a similar meaning. There are 30 items of suffering could be seen in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta of Sanjukta Nikaya, which is supposed to be the Buddha's very first sermon to the 5 ascetics at Isipatana. That is, we call Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. These are the 13 items we can see in that particular sutta. This is about the 13 items of suffering which are belong to what we call dukkha. So the items of dukkha, right? They are birth, jati, aging, jara, disease, vyadi, death, marana, sorrow, soka, lamentation, parideva, physical pain, that is also dukkha. For the physical pain also we are calling dukkha, right? Grief, domanassa, tribulations, upayasa, association with persons and things which are not dear, which are not like. Appiyehi sampayogo, appiyehi sampayoga. Disassociation from persons and things which are dear or like. Piyehi vipayoga. Not obtaining what one desires. Yampi icchan na labati tam. Whatever I like, but I cannot get it, right? Yampi icchan na labati tam. And clinging to the 5 aggregates, that is pancha upadana, clinging to the 5 aggregates. So these are the 13 items we can see in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta under the term suffering or dukkha. According to Samgiti Sutta of Digha Nikaya, we can see 3 types of suffering or 3 types of dukkha, not only one type, but 3 types. The first one is dukkha dukkhata. The first one is called dukkha dukkhata, suffering as pain. Suffering as pain. It is like dukkha vedana, similar to dukkha vedana, right? Suffering as pain. This is the ordinary sense of suffering as bodily and mental feeling of pain. This is ordinary sense of suffering as bodily and mental feeling, based on bodily and mental feeling. All the items above said, except the last one, belong to the ordinary suffering as universally accepted pain, right? I have mentioned 13 items, except the last one, that is clinging to the 5 aggregates, which I am going to discuss later. The rest 12 items are, we can conclude under the suffering as pain, that is dukkha dukkhata. The second one is, in Pali, we call viparinama dukkhata. Viparinama dukkhata. Viparinama means changing. Viparinama, changing. The suffering in change we call viparinama dukkhata. This refers to bodily and mental happy feeling. It is we call bodily and mental happy feeling, like sukha vedana, right? We call it sukha vedana, because they are causes for the rising of pain when they change, right? This is the idea. These are happy feelings. When the happy feelings are changing, the pain will arise. So, in this way, we call viparinama dukkhata, suffering in change. A happy feeling or a happy condition in life is not permanent, not everlasting. It changes sooner or later, whether we like or not. When it changes, it produces pain, suffering or unhappiness. In that sense, we call it viparinama dukkhata. That's the second type of dukkha. The last one we call sankara dukkhata. Sankara dukkhata. The suffering inherent in the formation. Suffering inherent in the formation. Sankara, in mental formation, right? It is because of formation, this kind of suffering will arise. We will going to discuss some references to understand what is about. This is it refers to the oppressive nature of all formation of existence. That means all conditioned phenomena. Due to their continual arising and passing away, this includes also experiences associated with neutral feeling. In this category, the feelings are like neutral feelings. We call adukkama asukha vedana. We can suppose under this category. So it is very easy to understand the nature of the first and the second types of suffering as mentioned above. So the first category, that is dukkha dukkhata, and the second one, that is viparinama dukkhata, we can easily understand, right? But for the better understanding of the third type of suffering, which is only discussed in Buddhism, requires some analytical explanation about the concept of individual. So we should have to understand about the individual. Without it, we cannot understand what is the suffering of formation or the sankhara dukkha. That is what we call a being or an individual or I, according to Buddhism. It means we should have to understand who I am, right? Is only a combination of ever-changing physical and mental forces, energies. So a person or the individual is actually the combination of ever-changing physical and mental forces, right? Which may be divided into 5 groups or aggregates. 5 groups we call aggregates, panchakhanda. So 5 aggregates. Now let us consider why and how the 5 aggregates of grasping are said to be suffering. 5 aggregates or panchakhanda are matter group, that is rupa khanda, the feeling group vedana khanda, the perception group sanya khanda, the mental formation group sankhara khanda, and the consciousness group vijnana khanda. Khanda means group or mass, right? There are 5 groups. These are the ever-changing physical and mental forces that we have within us, right? So these are grouped under 5. Matter group, matter or form group, feeling, perception, mental formation, that is sankhara, and consciousness. So these are the 5 groups. These are the 5 aspects in which the Buddha has summed up all the existing physical and mental phenomena of an individual. So these are the 5 aspects of individual. However, in the Buddhist definition of suffering, it is not the 5 aggregates, panchakhanda. but the 5 aggregates of grasping. So Panchakanda or 5 aggregates are not suffering, but suffering is grasping of them. That is, we call upadana. 5 aggregates of grasping. Pancha upadana kanda dukkha. This is how it is in the discourses. That are characterized as suffering. So in this way characterized as suffering. This shows that although the 5 aggregates in themselves are not suffering, they can be a source of suffering when they become objects of grasping. When they become an object of grasping or upadana, the suffering will arise, right? So this is how the third type of suffering, that is sankara dukkhata, will come arise with us. As an example, the matter group, that is rupa, rupakkhanda, is not a suffering, but a cause for suffering. When the time of it, in the time of matter grasp with faculties, the suffering will arise, and that is called the grasping of matter, rupa, upadana, right? In this way we should have to understand grasping of objects as a grasping of matters, as grasping of objects will arise the suffering. Individual himself grasping them in 3 ways. These are the 3 ways that we are grasping for the objects, like this. This is mine. Etang mama. This I am. Eso hamasmi. And this is myself. Eso me atta. This is myself. In this way we are grasping. This is my something. This is my bag, right? Like this is. Eso hamasmi. Eso aham asmi. This I am. I am like this. And this is myself. Eso viyatta. This is what I have. This is what belongs to me. Eso viyatta. The first grasping is due to craving. The first grasping, this is mine, or this is mine. It is due to craving or tanha. The second is due to conceit, or the mana conceit. And the third is due to the mistaken belief in a self-entity, that is ditti. Tanha, mana, ditti. Because of these 3 reasons, or these 3 defilements, we grasp whatever we can see, whatever we can observe, right? So in this way, this is the nature of ordinary people like us. Therefore, the Buddha said that whatever there is of matter, feeling, perception, mental formations and consciousness, whether past, present or future, one's own or external, gross or subtle, lofty or low, fear, far or near, all of these things one should understand according to reality and through wisdom. We should have to understand the reality and the true wisdom, as this does not belong to me, this am I not, this is not my ego. In this way we have to practice. We have to think about the objects, regarding the objects. Now I am going to discuss something about there are 4 wrong views according to the Buddhist discourses which were occurred during the time of the Buddha. There were 4 wrong views regarding the dukkha or the suffering. Especially regarding the suffering of an individual. The first one, suffering is self-caused. Idea is suffering is self-caused, that is sayankata. Some says that suffering is self-caused. It is because as a result of someone, right? It is once because it is based on the view that there is a continuing of self-entity which acts and suffers its consequences. So sayankata means it belongs to one's own, self-caused. That is the one wrong view. The second, based on the theory of external causation, according to which man suffers due to a principle which is external to him, like we call parankata, external cause. It means the suffering created by someone else, not one's own, like create a god, Issara Nirmanavada, or someone say that is destiny, that is Niyativada, as well as nature. Some says that is the nature or Subhava. In this way they have given suffering as a parankata, or as an external causation. The third one is both self-caused and caused by another, that is sayankatancha, parankatancha, together with first and second aspects. The fourth one is rejects all the 3 theories mentioned above and seeks to explain the suffering as an accidental circumstances. So the fourth group says adicca samuppanna. It is sort of accidental process, nothing, any reason, right? Which is the opposite of cause and effect theory. It is the opposite of cause and effect theory in Buddhism, what we call in Pali Paticca Samuppanna Vada. So the Adicca Samuppanna theory is the opposite of Paticca Samuppanna, right? So these are the wrong views. Some people have practiced as well as they talk about regarding the suffering, right? Regarding all these wrong views, the Buddha explained, Buddhism rejects all these four theories and explains the suffering of individual on the basis of dependent origination or cause and effect theory, Paticca Samuppanna Dukkha. So according to the teachings of the Buddha, dukkha or the suffering is Paticca Samuppanna Dukkha. It's suffering of individual on the basis of dependent origination for the cause and effect theory. This is the significance of the 12 linked causal formula, in the dependent origination theory. There are 12 linked causal formula where each succeeding link is said to result from what immediately proceeds it. In this way, according to Buddhism, dukkha or suffering is basis of dependent origination or paticca samuppada. This does not mean that the Buddhist causal formula explains only the origination of suffering. It explains its cessation, nirodha, as well. In the causal theory, it is not explaining only the origin of suffering, but the cessation of suffering as well. It is only in this progressive order that it explains how suffering comes to be. The theories we can see like in this principle. It is mentioned in some suttas. Whenever A is present, B is also present. Right? This is the causal theory. Imasmin sati idam hoti. Therefore, from the arising of A, B arises. Imassa uppada idam uppajjati. In its regressive order, the causal formula solves how suffering comes to cessation. This is the arising when A is present. Word A is present, B is also present. This is the theory of dependent origination as a principle. Therefore, for the arising of A, B arises. The cessation also, whenever A is absent, B is also absent. Imasmin asati idam nahoti. Therefore, from the cessation of A, B too comes to cessation. Imassa nirodha idam niruddhati. What this means is that every statement referring to the rising of suffering is always supplemented by another statement which explains how suffering comes to an end. So in this way, the 12 links through the 12 rings would explain the suffering, how it arises and cesses according to this formula. For an example, as the theory of cause and effect recommended, dependent on birth, decay, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and tribulation arise. Thus arises all mass of suffering. All are depend on each other. So this is the idea. Now we are going to the second truth, that is the origin of suffering or the rising of suffering, dukkha samudaya arya satya. Most popular and well-known definition of the second truth as found in discourses or the original text as follows. So this is a definition to the arising of suffering. It is this craving or tanha which gives rise to fresh rebirth, that is pono bhavika, and which is bound up with pleasure and lust, nandiraga sahagata, namely sensual craving, that is kama tanha, craving for existence and becoming, bhava tanha, and craving for non-existence and non-becoming, vibhava tanha. This is the idea about the rising of suffering. Rising of suffering we call craving or tanha, which gives rise to rebirth as well as bound up with pleasure and lust, right? These are sensual craving, craving for existence and becoming, and craving for non-existence and non-becoming. These are the ways which belong to the second truth. So it is clear that tanha is the main root for the arising of suffering. Now we will look at the rising of craving. Factors that contribute to the rising of suffering are mentioned in the second noble truth, according to which the rising of dukkha is directly related to craving. It is directly related to craving, that is accompanied by pleasure and lust. It is accompanied with pleasure and lust, that is nandiraga sahagata, and also delighting here and there. It delight, tatra tatra abhinandini. Abhinandini means delighting here and there. This reference to the tendency of delighting here and there in this or that reveals that one observes something as delightful, as gratifying, asada, then craving arises. Because of delighting something, we are delighting something, right? Then as a result of that delighting or gratifying, asada, then craving arises. So this is the idea according to this statement. According to the Maha Satipatthana Sutta of Digha Nikaya, this craving arises and establishes there where there is anything agreeable and pleasurable. So, according to Maha Satipatthana Sutta, the places where anything agreeable and pleasurable things, like we call in Pali, Piya Rupan, Sata Rupan, in those places the craving will arise and establish, right? So this is how it is. It is quite similar to the delighting places as well, right? It means we can understand that this craving will is arising because of agreeable and pleasurable things, right? It is quite viparinama as well, right? When they are changing the situation of agreeable and pleasurable, then pain or suffering will come as a result of them craving. So according to Mahasatipatthana Sutta, these are the places, they are agreeable and pleasurable places and things. You can see the 6 faculties, those are indriyas, 6 faculties, you know, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. So these are the 6 faculties. And 6 objects we call arambana. Form, sound, smell, taste, tangible and mind object, right? As a result of those faculties and object will arise 6 consciousness we call vinyana, eye consciousness and other 5 consciousness. As a result of it, 6 contacts. Contacts mean we call sampassa, eye contact, chakku sampassa and other 5 contacts. Right? Then 6 feelings or vedana, feeling born of eye contact, feeling born of eye contact, that is we call chakku sampassaja vedana, and the other 5 feelings. 6 perception or sanya, perception of form, rupa sanya and other 5 perception. 6 volitions or sanchetana, volition in regard to form, rupa sanchetana and other 5 volitions. 6 cravings or tanha, craving for form, rupa tanha and other 5 cravings. 6 thinking or vitakka, thinking of form, rupa, vitakka and other 5 thinking, and 6 pandani or vichara, examining, wondering on form, rupa, vichara and other 5 pandani are agreeable and pleasurable places where this craving arises and stays, right? So these are the places, as well as these are the ways of arising and establishing. Five faculties, then six faculties, six objects, and their consciousness. As a result of consciousness, they contact, and then arise six feelings, and then six perception, six volitions, six cravings, six thinking, and six pondering. So in this way, we can see the agreeable and pleasurable places, and agreeable and pleasurable things. So because of these reasons, as a result of thinking and acting, as a result of these, the craving arises and establishes. Right? This is the idea. In short, it is clear that craving arises and takes root when forms, sound, smell, taste, bodily contacts, and ideas are agreeable and pleasurable. So this is in short. One who sees anything which is agreeable and pleasurable, he cling to them, right? Tanha paccaya upadana. It is in causal formula or dependent origination. Tanha paccaya upadana. Craving alone is inadequate to explain the suffering, as stated earlier. The cause of suffering is craving rooted in ignorance, right? But the idea is actually craving alone. We cannot, it is quite difficult to explain the origination of suffering. Then we can see as a process when we are thinking, it is craving is rooted in ignorance or avijja as a process. Avijja, paccaya, sankhara. Ignorance is the foundation of craving. According to the formula of dependent origination, ignorance is the condition for the rising of karma formation. That is karma formation or sankhara. Actions of body, speech and mind, those are the karma formation. In short, karma formation are volitional activities. Right? Then we are moving to the third noble truth, that is the Nirodha Satya. Third noble truth is the emancipation, liberation, freedom from the continuity of suffering. This is called the noble truth of cessation of suffering, which is Nibbana. In Sanskrit, Nirvana, right? What are saying? Pali word Nibbana, Sanskrit word Nirvana. To eliminate suffering completely, one has to eliminate the main root of suffering, which is craving, as said earlier. Therefore, Nirvana is known also by the term Tanhakaya, extinction of craving. Tanhakayo Nirodho Nibbana. According to that, extinction of craving is Nirvana. Right? In his first sermon, the Buddha explained the third noble truth as follows. Monks, this is the noble truth of cessation of suffering. The complete cessation, nirodha, giving up, chago, abandoning, patinissago, release, mutti, and detachment, analayo. These are the conditions of nirodha. From that very craving, this is the away from, release from the craving, right? It is complete cessation, nirodha, giving up, chaga, abandoning, patinissaga, release, mutti, and detachment, analayo. These are the conditions of it. Yes, these are the conditions. You know something about nirvana, so I'm not going to talking much about it. Then the fourth noble truth, that is the way leading to the cessation of suffering, we call the fourth noble truth. The path to freedom from craving is the same path, same as the path to freedom from suffering, namely the noble eightfold path. This is known as the middle path, Majjhima Patipada, because it avoids two extremes, right? For the Eight Noble Fold path, we call middle path, or Majjhima Patipada. These are the reasons. One extreme being the search for happiness through the pleasures of the senses, which is low, common, unprofitable, and the way of the ordinary people, that is called Kama Sukhaladikana Yoga. The other being the search for happiness through self-mortification in different forms of asceticism, which is painful, unworthy, and unprofitable. That is called Arthakila Matanu Yoga. So these are the two extremes. The middle path is avoiding those two extremes, and because of that reason we call it middle path or Majjhima Patipada. It is not connected those two extremes, or the yoga or the raw path. This is called Ariya Attangika Magga. Ariya Attangika Magga, because it is composed of 8 categories. It has 8 categories of division. They are to be developed simultaneously, as they are interdependent and interrelated, with each helping the cultivation of the others. So they have idea is actually they have interrelation condition and interdependent. The first one of 8 noble fold path, right view or right understanding, we call Samma Ditti. The understanding of suffering, understanding of the origin of suffering, understanding of the extinction of suffering, and the understanding of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This is we call Sammaditthi. Second, right thought or Samma Sankappa. The thought of renunciation, the thought of non-ill will, and the thought of harmlessness. Nikkamma Sankappa, Abhyapada Sankappa, Avihimsa Sankappa. These are the Samma Sankappa, or right thought. Third one is right speech, Samma Vacha. Abstraining from lying, slander speech, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. Samma Vacha means sort of verbal practice, abstaining from telling lies, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. Musavada, Visunavacha, Varusavacha, Sampappalapa in Pali. Next one, the fourth, right action, or Pali, Samma Kammanta. Abstaining from killing, abstaining from stealing, and abstaining from sensual misconducts. So these are we call Samma Kammanta, which belong to 5 rules, 5 precepts, 3 or 5 precepts. You know it. The fifth one, that is right livelihood, that is we call Samma Ajiva. Having given up wrong livelihood, living with right livelihood is we call Samma Ajiva. Mainly, it is abstaining from 5 types of wrongful traits and endeavor to live a virtuous and disciplined life. Wrongful traits are weapons business, business of living beings, fresh and meat business, intoxicant business, and poison business. So these are mainly we should have to follow for the right livelihood to lead a virtuous and disciplined life. 6th one is right effort or Samma Vayama. There are 4 aspects. Prevent the rising of evil or unwholesome thoughts. Remove such thoughts that have already arisen. Produce and develop wholesome thoughts not yet arisen. Maintain and promote such thoughts that are already present. So these are the Samma Vayama or right efforts one should have to do regarding the efforts. This is about right effort. The 7th one, right mindfulness, Samma Sati. Contemplating the body as a body, contemplating feeling as feeling, contemplating mind as mind, and contemplating mind objects as mind objects. With attempt, with fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and greed, we have to make our mindful. Eighth fact is the right concentration, that is Samma Samadhi. Entering into the fourth absorption or jhana after detached from sense desire and from unwholesome mental states, kame, akusale. Keep away from sense desire and unwholesome mental states. One should have to entering into the fourth absorption or jhana, chattari, jhana. Jhana are the results of the Samma Samadhi or right concentration. It is quite a developed stage of the mind, right? Next, I am going to discuss the idea of Mahachattarika Sutta regarding the eight factors. Right? The idea of Mahachattarika Sutta also very important regarding our discussion. The aim of this sutta is to teach the noble right concentration, right? The aim of this sutta is to teach the noble right concentration, that is Samma Samadhi, right? As we have mentioned as the last factor of 8.1. Unification of mind with these 7 factors is called noble right concentration. It is said that in that sutta, unification of mind with these 7 factors. 7 factors mean the 7 factors we have discussed earlier, except the last one, that is Samma Samadhi, right? So unification of the mind with these 7 factors is called the noble right concentration. So according to that sutta, for the right concentration, we should have to follow all the 8 factors. For the noble right concentration, right view come first. According to that, right view means understand wrong view as wrong view and right view as right view. This is the right understanding or the Sammaditthi. This is one's right view to follow the other steps. As a gradual process in this Mahachattarika Sutta, it is like this. One who has the right view easily can reach to the right thought. One who has right thought easily can reach to the right speech. One who has the right speech easily can reach to the right action. One who has the right action easily can reach to the right livelihood. One who has the right livelihood easily can reach to the right effort. One who has the right effort, easily can reach to the right mindfulness. One who has the right mindfulness easily can reach to the right concentration. One who has the right concentration easily can reach to the right knowledge, that is Samma Jnana. One who has the right knowledge easily can reach to the right deliverance, that is Samma Vimukti. Right? You can see here there are 8 factors. Right? For the noble concentration, we have to practice the 8 factors as well as another 2. Right? Those are the right knowledge, Samma Jnana and Samma Vimukti, right deliverance. So according to this sutta, there are 10 factors, right, for the right concentration. This is the result. Right deliverance or Samma Vimukti has 2 kinds. Deliverance of mind, that is we call Ceto Vimukti, right? Deliverance of mind. And the deliverance through wisdom, that is we call Panya Vimukti. These are the 2 aspects of deliverance, right? Deliverance. Ceto Vimukti and Panya Vimukti, right? The former is the highest concentration, Samadhi, which is bound up with the path of Arahancy, that is Arahanta Magga. It is bound up with Arahanta Magga, right? We call Arahanta Magga. The latter is the knowledge bound up with the fruition or final result of Arahancy, that is Arahanta Pala. Clear? The idea is the Ceto Vimukti, or the deliverance of the mind, is really connect, as well as it is belong to highest concentration, and it bound up with the path of Arahancy, that is the Arahanta Magga, right? It is in the path, that we have Sovan Magga, Sovan Pala, so Sakadagami Magga, Sakadagami Pala. In this way, Arahanta Magga, Arahanta Pala. Magga is the first one, Pala, Arahanta Pala is the highest one. One who has the Panya Vimukti is the highest or the final results of Arahancy or the Arahanta Pala, right? So thus, the path with 8 factors is for the Seeker. Seeker means Attanga Samannagato Seko, or the noble ones, stream winner, one returner, non-returner, and the worthy one who does not reach to the fruition of Arahancy. So this people we call the Seeker, or the worthy, or the noble ones. Seeker means the noble one, right? Who entered into the Sotapanna or stream winner, right? Or one returner, Sakadagami, non-returner, Anagami, and Arahanta Magga, right? Path of Arahancy. So these are these people, or these noble ones, we call the Seeker. The path with 10 factors for the worthy one, or Arahant, who reach to the Panya Vimukti, right? Panya Vimukti, or fruition of Arahancy, or Arahanta Pala, right? So this is the idea about in the Chattarisik Sutta. So in this way we can discuss the origin, suffering as a cause, as well as the problem. We discuss suffering, and craving is the cause to suffering, and the cessation of suffering we call Nirodha, and the path leading to the cessation we call the Noble Eightfold Path, right? In this way we can discuss the sense of Four Noble Truths. Thank you very much for your discussion, for your for participating with this discussion, and may all meritorious deeds we have collected so far certainly help us to eradicate our defilements and to reach to the final liberation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.